Hello, I'm Alex Mansfield with Manny Things, and welcome to another episode of Manny Talks Shooting, the show where I talk to individuals all across the shooting industry. We'll talk competition, self-defense, concealed carry. If you enjoy this content, check out our YouTube channel, Manny Things. Without further ado, let's get to this episode. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Manny Talks Shooting, the show where I talk about whatever I feel like. Anyway, let's talk about this show's sponsor today. It is Go Fast, Don't Suck. Bill made this cool new banner. It's not shiny anymore, so it's matte, and it's cool. And Bill, I appreciate it, sir. But yeah, go check them out. Dry fire targets, jerseys, t-shirts, sick dope memes on the internet. So go check gofastdon'tsuck.net. Without further ado, let me introduce you to our guest tonight. Our guest is a good buddy of mine. His name is Jason Hitchings from Adept Defense. Jason, how are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I am fantastic. It's a wonderful day here in bullcrap cold Michigan.
Right.
We're doing okay. If any of you care to know, I'm in the southern part of Michigan. He's in the northern part of the Lower Peninsula. And we just happened to meet via the internet, right?
Right.
Which is really weird for me. I mean, we met on the internet and then we eventually figured out we both lived in Michigan, and then it's how it worked. But anyway, less about this crap. Jason, who are you and how'd you get into shooting, sir?
So I'm from Petoskey, Michigan. I own a firearms training company called Adept Defense. I mainly train local classes in the northern Michigan area. Teach anything from private instruction to newer shooters, which has been obviously a huge thing the last couple of years with COVID and things of that nature. There's more new gun owners now than there ever has been before. So done a ton of private instruction the past couple of years, a lot of CPL classes. So in Michigan, it's called CPL, Concealed Pistol License. So I teach that program. And then I have a full curriculum for pistol, right on from fundamentals on up through to my low light, no light program, cover and movement, things of that nature, more performance-based stuff. And I teach a foundation defensive shotgun class and a foundation defensive carbine class.
That's a pretty big line of curriculum. I didn't even know you taught all those.
Yep.
But you do teach a lot of private classes and small and stuff from every time I talk to you, you're always busy with some form of class or another.
Right.
So Jason, did you just start growing up shooting, or someone bring you in later on in life?
Well, my grandpa was probably the person that got me into firearms when I was a kid. So he was really big into hunting and fishing, just outdoor sports life. And probably from the age of 7 or 8, started out shooting rifles, 22s, BB guns, stuff like that. I was in a deer blind with my grandpa every season from about 3 years old on up. As soon as he could get me to sit still for a couple hours, he had me in a deer blind.
Not necessarily quiet, just still, right?
Right. Yeah. So I was with him for quite a few deer that he got. So that was a lot of fun, a lot of good memories of hunting with him. And then, I didn't get into the pistol stuff until I was like 24 years old. So, some guys at work got their CPL and they were talking about it, and I've always been into guns. So I decided that was a good idea. So I researched, who did a CPL class in my area and bought my first pistol and signed up. And, from then on, I've just been pretty much a training junkie from my first class. And, you don't realize how much you can gain in performance until you take a class, and they're extremely addicting.
Oh, yes, I would agree. What was that first pistol you ever bought?
My first pistol was the M&P Shield, like as soon as it came out. So that was during a time when there was, another ammo shortage. Things were hard to find. Went to a lot of local stores. I really wanted a Glock at the time. Couldn't find them anywhere locally. And then there was a local gun show at a fairground. So I went there and I was one of the first people in line. And my goal was I'm going to buy a Glock or an M&P if I can't find a Glock. So I went in there, and there was an M&P Shield, which I didn't even know about the Shield. It had just been released, and I'm like, well, I don't see any Glocks, so I guess M&P it is. So that was the first one.
So was that about like 2008 or so, or
Yeah, well,
or 13?
it might have been like 11.
Okay, yeah, because Sandy Hook was around there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Don't get mad at me, guys. I don't know the dates of everything.
Yeah, me too. Kind of becomes a blur at this point.
Right. So yeah, ammo shortage, not very fun. Guns were scarce like it is now. It's kind of interesting how things kind of full circle, right?
Yeah, it goes in cycles.
But yeah, so you got that M&P Shield. You and I kind of were similar in life. I didn't get my love for pistols until I was 22. So I mean, I wasn't like, I know a lot of people who are like, oh, I'm getting 21. Like my little sister, she turned 21. You know what she did? She got her CPL already. I'm like, which is good for her.
Right.
But it's very nice. It's, I waited about a year until it's the problem is coworkers, right? They're like, ooh, look at this cool pistol. Yep. I worked with a guy who was crazy about pistols. Like, he's looked at this one. He really loved Glocks and H&Ks. His favorite gun was a Glock P30, not the Glock, an HK P30, right, with the LEM. But yeah. But Jason, you were talking about you're a training junkie. I know that you probably got a long resume, but maybe give me the top 5 instructors you've taken classes from.
So I started out watching, videos, YouTube, buying all the DVDs, trying to, teach myself as much as I could with the help of that stuff. Kind of reached a point to where it's, I'm not going to progress any further until I actually go take a class and have an instructor work with me one-on-one. So I started out with a local guy, took his full curriculum of carbine and handgun stuff, and then found MDFI. So MDFI was the first class that I actually traveled for. All of their classes are about 4 hours away from my house. So I went and took 4 classes from them. I went and took a 2-day class with Dave Spalding from Handgun Combatives. Was able to pass his 2x2x2 drill and earn a belt buckle through that class.
Best belt buckle ever.
Right. I got a belt buckle for top shooter from MDFI as well, back when they were in the Aries Gear program too, before they started the bomb patches. I've got some of the bomb patches too for top shooter awards with them. Ended up doing their full handgun curriculum in order to meet all the prerequisites to train with William Petty of Centrifuge Training. So Trek hosted Petty for a vehicle CQB class in Michigan. So went and took that. Trained quite a bit with Steve Fisher from Sentinel Concepts, done several classes and private training session with him.
Oh, you're a big high dollar then. If you took a private one with Steve.
I took a private one. Yeah. So I went to a class, one of the small skill builder class down at Ann Arbor Arms, and he had a 2-hour private training block that was open on the schedule that was the same day. So I went and trained, did a private session with him earlier in the day, hung out down there for a few hours, and then went to the skill builder class. I've trained with Aaron Cowan of Sage Dynamics, done his red dot program, was able to red patch with him. Scott Jedlinski did his 3-day class. Travis Haley Strategic Partners did 6 days of training with him. And then last year, Tim Heron.
Yeah, you've definitely have gone the gambit.
Right.
There's a bunch of those classes that I'd love to take. It just, I don't know how they stack on my priority list. No, which there's a lot. That's a lot of money, to be honest with you.
Not even a lot of money.
Not even that the class, yes, is expensive for my listeners.
It's the travel and the hotel,
the travel, the bull crap you get into, the ammo, like,
yep.
Like even thinking nowadays, like, let's see, what is a Jedi's class? That's what, 1,000 rounds for 3 days.
Yeah.
1,000 rounds of 9mm. If you can find on the cheap ends, what, maybe 330 for a case.
Right.
So I mean, I know it sounds like I'm bitching, but I mean, like, other ammo is higher than that now. But
right. I mean, you look at the Haley Strategic class. That was a 6-day straight class. 500 to 700 rounds a day for 6 days. Plus, Haley's stuff, his classes, that 6-day block was $1,600 for tuition, plus the travel, plus the ammo. I mean, that was an experience, but it's a vacation budget to go to a class.
That's like a whole family's vacation budget in one class.
Right.
But luckily enough, that range is pretty close to you.
It was, yeah. So I was able to drive for the first 3 days because that was the daylight portion. And then we did the last 3 days was vehicle, low light, no light. So those classes went until 2 a.m. So I was staying down there in a hotel for those 3.
Yeah, if any of you guys care, the range we're talking about is MTC, or the Marksmanship Training Center in Lake City, Michigan. It's a pretty cool private club. It's got 2,000-yard ranges, a bunch of pistol bays, a 270 bay now. We saw that get built when we were up there for the Tim Herron class. I think MTC is going to be a nice spot for training. Once they get all their renovations done, hopefully they'll put a real bath. I mean, it doesn't have plumbing yet, but as soon as they put plumbing in, that thing will be awesome.
Yeah, and they get some pretty big name instructors to come up for pretty regular classes every year there.
Yep, they Greg, the the training coordinator, brings in some pretty good dudes. He brought Haley in. He's brought Finest Hour. Justin, have you met Justin of Finest Hour?
I've not met him. I follow him on Instagram, but that's about all I've seen.
I don't know if you saw, he ran a marathon recently. No, not a marathon, an Ironman. I'm sorry.
Did he?
Yeah, he did an Ironman.
Right.
But so a bunch of good dudes they have up there. I can't remember half of the crap that he's hosted up there, but definitely a good northern training mecca.
Yeah.
Not that far from Grand Rapids to just drive from Grand Rapids after you get off a plane.
Right.
But
it's a pretty good drive from, if you can fly into Traverse City too. I think it's only like a 45-minute drive from Traverse City too. So if somebody can get a flight, a lot of those flights that go in there are Chicago connections. So if somebody, ends up going to Chicago and then to Traverse City, it's a pretty short drive from there.
Oh yeah, because you can connect it. Now it's probably from Midway.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, let's get off that topic. A lot of my listeners probably don't like to admit it, but they love gear. We all love gear, right? We're all we're gear junkies really at heart. We like to show off what the hell we have. So Jason, you are a competitive shooter, but you're also primarily a self-defense EDC kind of guy too. So we'll talk about both kind of spectrums here, but go ahead and start. What do you carry for EDC? Like your gun, holster,
Right. So EDC stuff, summer months, if I need a small, comfortable gun, the SIG 365 XL with a hollow sun dot on it. I carry that quite a bit. I actually bought that gun more for students to use because I knew it was going to be popular. I never had the intention of carrying it personally. But Eric from 508 Holsters, who is a sponsor of mine, he does phenomenal holsters. So, you've had him on the channel as well. So he sent me a holster for it. I shot it quite a bit and it shoots like a bigger gun. Even though it's, it's like one of those slim line double stacks. So it's very comfortable to carry, lightweight. But the majority of the time I'm either carrying a G45 or a G17.
Yeah. Well, when I met you, you weren't carrying a Glock. You're carrying a SIG.
I was.
You finally made the switch back to the good old promised land?
Yeah. So I kind of went down the journey of, I was on Glock pretty much since the beginning of my shooting and training. And then last year I made the decision to start taking competition a little bit more seriously. So shooting carry optics, because I've been on a dot for about 7 years now. So planned on shooting carry optics, started really researching what equipment would give me the best advantage in carry optics. And some guys that I talked to, they pretty highly recommended the SIG X5 Legion. So I decided I was going to pick up an X5 Legion for USPSA, and learning a new platform with a different grip angle and all of that stuff. I wanted it to be consistent with what I was carrying and what I was teaching with. So I picked up a Zev 320 as well for concealed carry and a training gun, and then ended up getting 2 X5 Legions for USPSA, which I dedicated a full year on that platform, and I just never got super comfortable with it. So at the end of this past season, I got my Agency Arms Glock 17 back out that, has 30,000 rounds through it. And I've got a ton of time behind that gun. And I put together a series of drills to where I could gauge my performance on both guns. Did it over the course of 3 different range sessions. So it wasn't just I had a good day with one gun. Mm-hmm. Put a lot of effort and a lot of thought into getting some data. And I still shoot a Glock better than shooting the SIG, even though 95% of my rounds over the last year has been through the SIG. I still shoot the Glock better.
Yeah. I don't blame you. I mean, this also kind of feels comfortable with you. And I mean, you've got 7-ish years on a Glock and only 1 on the SIG. It kind of makes sense. I blame Eric though for making you spend all that money. And he'll be okay with it because I know he'll listen. Mm-hmm. Eric's a really cool dude. If you guys don't know, go check out 508 Holsters. He's a buddy of ours. Jason actually got me hooked up with him. So he's a cool dude from New England. But yeah, so you switch back to the Glock. Any plans on getting a Gen 5 17 and sending that out or no?
I've thought about it just primarily for the more generous magwell that they have built into it. Mm-hmm. Being that you can't run a bolt-on magwell and carry optics yet anyway, the Gen 5 has the advantage there. Everything else about like my Agency Arms, which is a Gen 4 17, everything that they do to these guns, it's all pretty much been optimized, but that's the one thing that I wish it had was that Gen 5 magwell opening. So yeah, I've thought about it. It'll be interesting to see if they ever loosen up the rule on magwells and carry optics or not. But
I mean, we've talked about this privately before. When I talked to you about that, I swear to God, I was reading the tarot cards about it. And now I don't know. I've talked to people within USPSA. I don't think it'll happen because I think if they open that up, they're opening up another can of worms. Mm-hmm. Honestly, if my opinion's correct, I think that if you add a magwell, you wouldn't be far off between seeing 2011s and carry optics, which I really don't want because then everyone's going to ditch the polymer guns and go to 2011s. Yeah. Which then you're putting staccatos, staccatos, triarchs, a bunch of not that I don't want Timmy's participating, but that's a whole lot of a difference between a $700 Glock to a $4,000 staccato.
Yeah. And you'll get a lot of people looking at getting into the sport and see 99% of the shooters are shooting a 2011 and they look at 2011 price tag and they're like, nope, I'm out.
Right. And I don't want to see carry optics split up into like IPSC has production optics light and then production optics heavy. Okay. So like the heavy would be like ZZ's Tanfos, light would be like striker fired guns. And I don't want to see that because then we're watering down the pool even farther.
Right.
But so I don't think magwells will come now after doing a little more digging. I mean, I'd like it just because to protect the frame. I mean,
right.
But then if you add
I bolted on a Magpul, their cheap magwell on my Gen 4 frame just for dry fire to keep it from getting torn up. This is the off season for us, being that it's winter time in Michigan. So it's a lot of dry fire this time of year. And, rather than tearing up my frame throughout the entire winter, I just figured, a $20 bolt-on magwell that's really small to where it's not kind of building in this handicap of, sloppy reloads being okay. Just kind of decided to do that.
I didn't think about that. I might see. I don't know if they make one for the Gen 5s.
Right.
Maybe I'll look into that, because especially it doesn't add a lot, I don't think, but it definitely would save my frame. But yeah, so we talked about your EDC gear a little bit. You switched, then you're back to Glocks. What's your competition rig look like?
Well, I just got a new belt a couple months ago. So running the same Dominate Defense belt that you're running with the ratchet system in the back.
Yep, I did that. I did that, Jason. I mean,
that was your fault.
I know.
100%. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. But I love it. It's super nice and convenient for dry fire too. Put it on and cinch it down. It, you don't have to thread an inner belt through if you just want to do a quick 15-minute dry fire practice session. Convenient with that. Running the double alpha aluminum mag pouches, and then a Boss hanger with a Red Hill holster on it, which I have my new holster on order, so that shouldn't be too far away.
Yeah, that
your fault, by the way.
So I mean, all those things, the double alpha, the Dominate, the GX. I mean,
yep.
Although I'll blame my buddy Tony for showing off the coolness of that GX, because I don't want to hold my gun running around on the range.
Right.
Yeah, him and Mason Lane, they did it to me, but it took me long enough to order it. But I got you to order one. I got Rick to order one.
Oh, did he?
Yep, Rick ordered one because I told him to.
Yep.
But yeah, so yeah, I don't know. All those things, all those are good products. I mean,
right.
It's one of those things though. It's kind of buy once, cry once.
It is. Yeah.
And that's all good gear. Well, I mean, like I said, we're all gear queers, but so Jason, like you were talking, we're shooting carry optics. Do you plan on always staying in carry optics or moving around a bit?
Probably for the most part. I don't really see myself going to another division anytime soon. I don't really see myself going to open anytime. Just the ammo that you have to shoot and load for open, how hard it is on those guns, and hearing those guys talk about needing 3 open guns that are identical, because one's always in for repair and you need a backup and you need your primary match gun. So I don't know, just the carry optics for me, it has the most carryover with what I teach as far as my EDC stuff and defensive classes. I'll probably be sticking there.
I think that's a good thing. I've been thinking about going to open for a while, but for the same reasons, I don't want to have to. I can't honestly. I couldn't afford to go to open, to be honest with you. Just
right,
because I couldn't start with just one gun.
Nope.
Nope. But what kind of drives your shooting? Like if it be competition, or do you have goals necessarily like that you've attained, like that even kind of just pushes your self-defense kind of training? What kind of pushes you?
So it was with the defensive side of the house. So 90% of the training that I've taken and all of my focus for the past several years has been on the defensive side of the house. And there was always the push of wanting to train with that next big instructor that I wanted to train under. So there was always, I guess, a motivator of making sure I was squared away enough to be in that class to where everything was subconscious and I could focus and learn about what they're actually teaching, to where I'm not having to, use your mental processing to think about the shooting portion. So that was always kind of the big motivator. I have really trained with the majority of the big instructors that I wanted to on the defensive side of the house. And it kind of got to a point to where there was a year that I felt like I didn't really make any gains at all in my performance. And so I kind of started looking at the competition side and decided to take a buddy and go to a local USPSA match and try it out. So we did that. It was a ton of fun. So we went back again the next month and did the local match again. We learned a lot. Everybody was super accommodating. Anybody that you squad with, everybody wants to help and give advice and stuff. And quickly learned I knew nothing about stage planning, and the shooting portion that was okay, but it was the movement and the stage planning to really be good at the game that I didn't know. So I was at a point on any defensive class I went to, I've gotten a lot of top shooter awards and stuff like that. Thought I was a pretty squared away shooter. Finally got classified in USPSA, and I was a low B class shooter, which was kind of a kick in the ego a little bit for me, because I thought I was going to be at least an A class shooter, and I wasn't,
Mm-hmm.
So then I decided this past year, gonna put a little more focus and a little more effort into competition and see where it takes me, see if that will be a good driver to up my performance. And, hopefully some of that increased performance will translate into, a better curriculum for my students as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And because it seems like in the tactical defensive side, there are a lot of people who have those big egos of being badasses, but then they show up to a competition, a USPSA match, and they get their butts whooped by the gynecologist or the accountant.
Exactly.
On your first USPSA match, did you shoot it like open from concealment, or did you actually kind of have like outside the waistband gear that you ran?
I did have an outside the waistband setup. It was not a race holster and a hanger and stuff like that. I had some Kydex outside the waistband mag pouches and a Kydex holster, and pretty much ran it that way. But we really didn't know what we were doing or what we were getting into. Didn't know a lot of the rules other than, the 180 rule. So just kind of followed everyone's lead, and we actually squatted with the match director for that club. So being that we were the new guys there, he said, you can squad with me and we'll kind of walk you through what we do here. And that was pretty helpful as well.
Yeah, I agree. That's probably that's a smart thing. If you don't know anybody necessarily at the club, that's probably your best bet, especially being the new guy.
Yeah,
gonna walk you through the match. Yeah, and that doesn't surprise me. You came in at B because you're a pretty proficient shooter. I think if somebody did the math right, like even a B class shooter is like in the top point percentage of actual gun owners in the world. So
right.
But yeah. So do you have like a goal in USPSA to hit, or just use it as a proficiency bonus?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really easy to get wrapped up in, the classification system, and wanting to shoot classifier stages and constantly look at your percentages. And, that's definitely been a thing this year. Came down and shot that classifier match with you at the beginning of this year in the spring. That was the first match I shot of this season.
And we got our asses kicked.
Yep, we did. But we squatted with some great shooters, which were extremely helpful. John was a lot of fun to watch. Chris was a great shooter, full of a lot of tips, the entire day. So I felt like I got a lot out of that match too, just based on who we squatted up with. So that part of it was nice. Right now, I think I'm at 72%. So I need like one more good classifier run to make A class. And I would really like to get to master class. I would feel pretty good about that. I don't know that I'll ever dedicate enough time just to competition to really go after being a GM. Maybe once I make master, that perspective will change, and then I want to be GM.
At this point, Eric's screaming into his phone, right? Be like, but you can do it.
Right.
Just do it.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, being, kind of developing the friendship and business relationship with Eric of 508 Holsters. He's a masterclass USPSA shooter in carry optics, and, talking to him and getting some advice from him. He's been super helpful along the way too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's lucky. He's got some good shooters to pick their brains too up near him. Lucky,
he does.
Lucky bastard.
Yep.
But now, how many rounds do you think pre-COVID did you go through a year?
Pre-COVID, I was about 15K a year, with just personal practice.
And you were buying it cheap, stacking it deep, right?
I was. I mean, being a Prime member at Target Sport USA and stuff, to where you could kind of get the discount. I mean, you could get a 1,000-round case for $160 to your doorstep, to where it wasn't hard to have 10,000 rounds on the shelf at, any given time. And then that has kind of changed with the latest ammo crunch, which is why I have this now.
As you should.
Yep.
I think everybody if you're going to put that much money or rounds down range a year, I think it's kind of necessary. It's a little more time consuming, which not a lot of tactical guys have the time or want to make the time for it.
Right.
But there's definitely cost savings or diversions, I want to say, because you could probably shoot more rounds for the same amount of money.
Yep.
Now thinking about in COVID, you could still, I think you can still shoot cheaper than
Right.
now. But what about with COVID? Are you like down to what, 5,000 or less? Or
I think I shot a little under 8,000 this year with teaching and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How much do you think was that of personal development or we'll say personal development, because I don't really count matches in that.
Right. So my personal practice sessions for live fire, I would try to do at least one live fire session a week all summer long. A lot of them were 100 rounds is what I would try to limit myself to. And depending on the day and what I was working on, I would usually bring 200 or 250 rounds. And there were days when I would be 50 rounds deep and it's just, this is not my day for practice. I might as well pack it up and go home. And there are times when, it was just some great data that I was getting. So I'd end up going through 200 rounds. But I tried to do 1 day a week live fire, at least 100 rounds.
Yeah. I don't blame you. My problem is if I took 200 rounds, I'm probably going to shoot 200 rounds.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't even take that kind of rounds for me. I will load up my mags, and then I'll have the baggie or box, the blue Dillon boxes or whatever, and take that with me and be like, that's all I got. That's all I can spend.
Right. Right.
But I will definitely pack it up early, because I guess it's not productive to waste ammo like that if you're not having a good day.
Yeah, I mean, there's just every once in a while you'll go there because it was the day that you had scheduled for practice, but you get there and your head's just not in the game, and you're just not with it mentally enough to really make gains and get good data. So it's like there's no point in wasting the ammo at this point.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you say data, are you actually like writing down like your metrics or your hits or something like that?
Right. So that is something that has kind of changed for me over the years. It used to be I would go to the range and say I'm going to get a practice session in, and I would show up with 100 or 200 rounds of ammo and not really have a plan. I'd have some targets and some ammo, and I'm just going to go shoot. So that has evolved to every range trip is specifically planned out as what drills I'm going to do based on what I'm working on in dry fire. So I use my live fire sessions to confirm what I'm working on with dry fire, kind of get some drills and plans put together as far as that goes, so I can collect data, take notes. I've got a practice log notebook that I use, so I can actually review stuff and see if I'm actually making gains. And but I think that's one of the biggest things that people that go and practice, a lot of them don't document the results.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you do that, are you recording every run? Or are you recording like the best run? Kind of walk me through. We'll use an example of a bill drill, right?
Right.
So you're recording the time, and I'm assuming if it's all hits or.
Yeah. So I would document whether it's a cold run or a warmed up run, distance, time. If I had any Charlies, if it wasn't all alphas, document what those were. If I threw some Charlies because it was, lack of support hand grip pressure, document that. then that's something that I can come back to and work on in my dry fire, because it's pretty easy with doing dry fire and getting lazy with that support hand grip, because we're not, actually holding the gun through recoil. So that's one of those things that you have to consciously think about with dry fire practice. It's, if you do a legit dry fire session to where you're gripping the gun like you should be gripping the gun, your hands should be sore, after a 15 or 20 minute session. If you can go and dry fire for 2 hours and not feel it, you're probably not gripping the gun hard enough.
Well, I will counter that, because some people dry fire for 2 hours, but they're on for 5 minutes, they're off for 5 minutes playing on their phone. Right. And then they say I dry fired for for 2 hours, but really they only done it for maybe 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Like my hand, I dry fired this morning, and a little bit before I got on this the podcast, I dry fired a little bit, and definitely the support hand is hurting. Right. But I use these a lot because to help me with my grip strength. Audio listeners, I'm sorry you haven't been able to see this, but it's one of those like grip ring things that it's kind of helpful.
Right.
But yeah, definitely. I think that was one of the biggest takeaways you and I both had from the Tim Herron class this year was support hand grip pressure, and not necessarily support hand grip pressure, but I think is more of the lack of strong hand grip pressure.
Yes.
Because you had I think you surprised Tim how strong you gripped with your strong hand.
Yep.
And you can still, even with that grip, you still rip splits pretty well, even with the vice of what the 100% you'd want to call it with both hands kind of grip.
Right. Now, with all of the training that I've been through, that was something that was never really broke down in detail, was what your grip pressure should be with the dominant hand or the strong hand. All the instructors talk about how hard you should grip the gun with your support hand, but they don't talk a lot about the dominant hand and being able to work that trigger finger effectively, to be able to run fast splits and not get trigger freeze. That's a key part of it, and I don't think a lot of people go into enough detail with that.
I agree. And
does an awesome job with it.
Yeah. For me, I've definitely had the issue of, since I started competing, to get rid of pinning and resetting, that has been the hardest thing to deal with for myself. And that's like, I've tried every little technique of put the paper clip, the piece of paper in the ejection port on a Glock. And I mean, I'm finally getting rid of it, but it's taken me so long. And I think the grip pressure of, just kind of holding the gun with your strong hand, and that helped a lot.
Right.
So I work on that a lot lately, and as like one of my micro drills. But yeah, Tim definitely is a top-notch instructor. I think we'd both agree with that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, but Jason, I want to kind of move into kind of your curriculum and stuff like in your instruction. But first, I need to know, why do you teach?
For me, it was kind of one of those things I never really planned on teaching. Like I said, I was pretty much a training junkie for several years, and I couldn't get enough of it. And some of the, buddies that I shoot with locally here, I'd be telling them about what I learned at each class and stuff, and then they would want to know more. And, it kind of got to the point to where people would start asking me to teach them to be more proficient. So it was kind of one of those things that just happened naturally. And one of the first instructors that I ever trained with, which was the local guy, he was out of Traverse City. So, hour and 15 minutes from my house. And I took, I think, 6 classes from him over the course of a couple of years. And we always stayed in contact after that. And I was, constantly telling him about, all of the different classes I was taking downstate and traveling to, and kind of giving him an after action report type of deal for each class I would go to. So he invited me to go get my NRA range safety officer certification, to where I could be an AI at some of his classes. So he actually paid for me to go to that class, get that certification, and then also the NRA pistol instructor certification. So those were my first official credentials, I guess, as an instructor. And then I ended up getting certified by the USPSA and the Michigan Coalition of Responsible Gun Owners to teach their curriculums as well. But other than CPL stuff, I developed my own curriculum. So the only outside curriculum I teach is specific for a CPL class. But he was kind of the one that pushed me into, instructing. He's like, you're traveling all around and getting all of this great knowledge, bring it back for some of the people in this area, because up here in northern Michigan, there's really not a lot as far as quality firearm instruction without driving 4 hours.
Yeah, because you got that's about Grand Rapids for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree. Yeah, well, so that's kind of cool. So you went up there. Now, what do you think the cost of what's going to take those NRA classes?
I think the range safety officer class was just a 1-day class. Mm-hmm. And that one was actually pretty local to me. That was about an hour away. So that one wasn't bad. The pistol instructor class I took, that was a multi-day class down in Traverse City. So that was like an hour and a half each way for a couple days.
That's not too bad then. No,
it wasn't.
Okay. And then do you have to keep those credentials up or do those?
So yeah, the NRA stuff, it's basically just renewing them every so many years as far as paying your fee. But the advantage of having an NRA cert, well, one, a lot of local ranges want you to be an official certified instructor to be, given permission to teach at their range.
For insurance purposes, I'm assuming.
Yeah, the other part of it is the insurance. So there are insurance programs that are available through the NRA, which aren't really as expensive as you would think it would be to be a firearms instructor. That was one of the things that I thought about. Insurance has to be crazy as far as liability goes, but it's really not bad.
Well, that's pretty good then.
Yeah.
So now we'll run me kind of through your curriculum. Like, say I'm a brand new shooter and I want to take classes from Adept Defense. Where would you kind of put me? And then the progression of that, and between there, I'm going to ask some questions about it. So go ahead.
Yeah. So a lot of these newer shooters and newer gun owners that I work with, I usually recommend a private 2-hour block to start off with. Firearm safety rules, loading process, unloading process, fundamentals of marksmanship, being able to actually put things together and get that bullet to land where you intend it to go. Right. So that's kind of the first step. Usually, depending on the student, I will send them home with some homework as far as what they need to work on. And then when they feel that they, have put some time and effort into working on whatever I think they should, then they can contact me again for a follow-up block. So if they're brand new to firearms, I usually like to do one-on-one with them. Mm-hmm. Now, I do monthly CPL classes at my local club. So a lot of those people are comfortable with firearms already and, have shot before. So that part of it's pretty decent. They have a little bit of knowledge coming into it. So we teach, the 4 universal firearm safety rules, ingrain those, and shooting fundamentals in that class as well, in order for them to be able to pass their live fire qual at the end of class. So those classes are a good opportunity to kind of preach the importance of further training. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of where my curriculum that I've developed comes in, to where I have my defensive pistol 1 class, defensive pistol 2, low light, no light is a class that I think every concealed carrier should take, because bad things happen in the dark, and it gets dark every night.
Well, yeah, and especially in Michigan, like what is it? It's dark by 5:30. Like
it is.
And most people don't get out of work till 5, and it's already dark. You go into work when it's dark, and you leave when it's dark.
You do. Yep, absolutely. So a lot of people have never really thought about what goes into low light tactics or being able to be proficient running a gun with one hand, having a handheld light in their other hand. So a lot of that is completely new to them. So, there's some prerequisites to be able to attend that class. They have to take my Defensive Pistol 1 class, which one of the prereqs for that class is having a CPL, because that is basically a concealed carry based defensive class. So we work on a lot of a draw stroke type stuff. And we work on, shooting from different positions of the draw stroke, a little bit of introduction into movement into the shooting. And then Defensive Pistol 2 kind of picks up where that class left off, to where it is uses of cover and concealment, positional work, movement, things of that nature. But you have to have Defensive Pistol 1 or an equivalent approved class by me to be able to jump into a low light class, because I need to know that their safety and gun handling is ingrained well enough that I can trust them in the dark.
Right. Now, back to pistol, defensive handgun 1, like how many people do you often see shooting like from Appendix nowadays?
Nowadays, okay, so in Defensive Pistol 1, it's probably a pretty low percentage that come in to that class shooting from Appendix. So you have to have, as far as gear goes, a quality holster that's made for that gun, not a universal holster. So something that maintains its shape when you draw that gun to where you can safely reholster it, right? And then a spare mag pouch, magazines, ammo, eye pro, ear pro, all that stuff. Now they'll come to class with whatever holster they decide to pick up. A lot of times it's, strong side carry. And I teach everything from Appendix, because that's the way I carry 99% of the time. And it's kind of one of those classes where people start asking about advantages of Appendix carry. So we get into talking about that. And depending on, body type, comfort level, stuff like that, by the next class that they come back for, 90% of those people are Appendix carriers.
Yeah, makes sense. So most of your people, when they come back for the second class, probably are in Appendix. And
yep.
Now I'm assuming, I know you've probably really harp on safe free. I mean, as anyone should, safe reholstering, and especially, especially from Appendix, especially from newer people.
Yep.
As you'd probably say, it's not really for new shooters. No, well, not necessarily. I mean, everyone's level of attention to detail and whatnot probably dictates if they should be doing it or not, I bet. But
yeah, that's what I always tell everybody. When you reholster, that's probably one of the most dangerous things we do in class, and we do it repeatedly throughout the entire class. So there's no time limit as far as how long it takes you to get that gun safely in the holster, but look it into the holster and do it as safe as possible. And we kind of go through those procedures as well. But I'm never somebody that is a proponent of pushing fast reholstering.
I don't think any instructor would say we teach fast reholsters here. Like that's how you get an insurance. That's when you get someone to accidentally discharge into their into them, exactly. And then you actually have to.
People think it looks cool on Instagram, but it's not what I want to see in my class.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But okay. And what do you see, mostly micro 9s, or are you seeing full size kind of pistols in that class?
It's a mix. So there's quite a few people that kind of have that learning moment as far as taking Defensive Pistol 1. A lot of people show up with guns that they really quickly realize that they don't shoot well and it doesn't really fit them. And it's funny to see how much of a change there is in guns and gear between their first class and their next class with me. A lot of people wholesale change their entire setup.
Yeah, that I almost went through that. When I first took a Steve Fisher course at Ann Arbor Arms, I had a Glock 19, and then I realized my hands were a little too big for a Glock 19.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess my word of advice to everybody is don't believe the internet on everything you read. Well, obviously, don't do that. Don't believe the internet on everything you read, but
Yeah.
go to a
So
gun shop, find everybody's gun, handle every gun you want, find the right size
yeah.
for you.
So I'm really fortunate as far as being hooked up with my local gun store, which is called Retro Firearms in Petoskey. The owner, Randy, there, he's an awesome dude, and he refers a lot of people my way. And especially the last couple of years with all of these brand new gun owners that are coming into his shop looking to buy something. And, he goes through, his gamut of questions as far as, what their desires and goals are with that firearm. Are they going to take any training? Are they going to try to become proficient and put work in? And if they are, he usually refers them to me before they ever buy a gun. So being that I'm hooked up with him, I get a pretty sweet discount on new firearms. So it's always kind of my goal to, whenever a new gun comes out on the market that I think is going to be really popular and have good aftermarket support to it, I try to pick one up to where, somebody can get a hold of me and say, I'm looking for a concealed carry gun, but before I buy one, Randy said I should get a hold of you. So I'll do a 2-hour private training session with them, kind of give them a decent foundation. Plus they can try 10 guns that I bring to the range, right? So they can see what fits their hands and what they shoot well, because you and I both know what feels good in your hand might not translate into what you shoot well.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of different nuances in pistol picking. Like
Yep.
if it's, and especially sometimes you don't know if a back strap's going to work for you, adjustable palm swells, different grips completely on like a Tanfo CZ 1911.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, luckily enough, most guns nowadays have modularity to do that.
Right.
And we're not stuck with the one size fits all, like the G42 and the G43 that are, don't have any, like, that's what you get. The only thing you can do is add a pinky extension magazine extension in.
Exactly.
But I'm not saying you can't use a 43 or a 42 as like a backup pocket ankle gun. I mean, that's kind of, I feel, what they're designed for.
Yeah, I've got a 42 and an ankle holster, and that's the only time I ever carry that gun, is if it's a backup roll on an ankle holster.
Mm-hmm. Now, how many? I don't want to push your butt, like your dollar here, but how many students do you think you see in a year?
Trying to think when 2018 was my first full year with Adept Defense, with starting the company. So things kind of got started in 2017, but I really hit the ground running in 2018. And so in the few years, I think right now I'm at like 1,900 students that I've put through. And that's growing faster now than it did at the beginning, now that I'm teaching CPL classes. So when I started the company, I was certified to teach CPL classes. I just didn't do it because all of the clubs in my area had somebody, that they would, that was sitting on their board, or one of their members or whatever, that was a CPL instructor that would do in-house classes. And I didn't really want to step on anybody else's toes at the clubs I would teach at. So I would just teach my curriculum. So it was all, group classes and stuff on the range. But the club in Charlevoix, which is kind of my home club, their CPL instructor left. So they approached me because if somebody calls the sheriff's department and they want to know about a CPL class, they refer them to that club. So that club wanted somebody who would do a monthly CPL class in-house, to where they can give, that information to their members. So they asked me if I would do that. And I thought that was a great opportunity to get people hooked on training and get CPL holders to actually be proficient with a gun, and not just take a CPL class and think that they're squared away and good to go.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I tell everybody who gets their CPL, you got to go seek further training. Yes. I don't care who you took your CPL with, you need to go seek further training. If it's someone taking it with you, I would like to see them, take defensive handgun 1 or a performance-based class, something I hate to hear, well, I'm a CPL holder and that's it. Like,
Yep.
it really points to like, that makes me, it's great that you're carrying a gun and decided to protect yourself and think about your loved ones, but it's also like, I don't know your competency level of what training you've seeked. But anything more after the CPL class is definitely a bonus.
Right.
And I bet you're probably a smart guy and give everybody a discount when they go take their second class from you, if I'm right.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. Repeat. You dangle the carrot and be like, hey, it might
Yep.
not be much, or it might be a lot. I don't know, because I'm not
Yep.
into knowing what your business side of things are, but I think that's how you get people back. Besides your nice personality, it's like come back and like 10% off, probably. I don't know. Don't quote me, guys, because I'm just spitballing here.
Yep, that and the the free merchandise and stuff like that they win throughout the class. We do little mini competitions here and there, for an Adept Defense hoodie or hat or something like that, and
look at you giving out hoodies. Those don't got to be cheap.
Right. But it's one of those great things because they earn it. So they love it and then they wear it and then people ask them about it and it sends more business my way. So it's great advertising dollars to put into merchandise that people will wear. I've had multiple people come through class and, I always ask everybody in a CPL class, how did you hear about this class?
Mm-hmm.
And there's been a few people that are like, well, I was, at such and such a place and I saw somebody wearing an Adept Defense t-shirt. So I asked them about it, and then they look up my website and they find me.
Right. Speaking of winning stuff, let's talk about you do have a challenge target.
I do.
It's a pretty cool drill, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
So and you can win a cool patch, I think. You get the
Yes.
gold, silver, and the Adept patch.
Yep.
I don't think that your times are unreasonable. You want to go through the drill for the people listening? Because I'm actually looking at it on my other screen, but
yeah, so it's a target, and it has two 2-inch square boxes on it and then a rectangular box in the center. So it's shot at 5 yards and you start from concealment with 2 rounds in the gun. So on the beep of a shot timer, you put 1 round in each small box, do a slide lock reload, and put 5 rounds in the bigger center box. Now, if you run it clean, there are 3 different time standards for that to be able to earn a patch. So there are 3 different patches. There's the gold standard, which is the fastest time, the silver standard, and then the Adept standard. So I have students that have been through my full curriculum. There's a couple gold patches out there, a handful of silvers, and quite a few Adept standard patches now.
Yep. Now, what do you think is the hardest part of that drill for people?
Hardest part of that drill is the first round. Really? That's where I see people fail. It is so in order to run the pistol standards test, it has to be higher than a level 1 class, right? So the level 1 class is going over so much draw stroke stuff. Nobody's going to have that ingrained and be proficient and fast enough with their draw stroke to put them on the timer in front of the entire class and have them try to run that. I could see where that could run into safety issues because people are nervous. They're rushing that draw stroke. Definitely. So it's in a level 2 or higher class that we run it. I give everybody 2 attempts at it in class. And it is usually that first round fired, they will rush the trigger press and not have enough support hand grip on the gun. That is usually where the failure point is on that.
Mm-hmm. So have you broken this down to see what kind of like you need to minimally get gold? Because you've seen the videos where Scott Jedlinski's like broken down the fast drill, right?
Right.
So what does it take to get a gold on remember the breakdowns
for
that?
Yeah, gold standard, if you can get a good first hit on that small box and about a 1-point transition from the first box to the second box doesn't have to be very fast to still be in it. Your reload has to be pretty smooth. And then that final 5 rounds is basically a recoil control section of it. So you really have to let the gun eat on that final 5 rounds, to make the gold standard. I'll usually break it down in class, and I'll try to put together a run at each standard level so they can see what it looks like to shoot it at Adept, at Silver, and at Gold. But the reload has to be pretty flawless to meet Gold, and your split times have to be pretty fast for those final 5 rounds.
Fair enough. How many times can you smack Gold every time?
Yeah, so I only had one class this year to where I didn't pass it clean when I demoed it on the first try at Gold. And that was kind of disappointing to me, because that was the very first time I've ever demoed it in front of everyone and not passed it at Gold on the first attempt. And I had one round that was slightly outside of one of those small boxes. So I ended up doing a second run at it, slowing down a little bit, and demoed it at Silver. But yeah, I've had a couple shooters that have passed it at the Gold level and been through my full curriculum, and they're usually pretty excited when they do that.
Gotcha. That's pretty cool. Yeah, guys, good. You can print out his targets on his website, adeptdefense.com, if I'm correct. Yeah, adeptdefense.com. Check it out. It's a cool little target. It's in the show notes as well. But I want to move on a little bit. Are you're planning on taking a class in 2022? And are there any matches that you're kind of looking forward to going? I know your schedule is hectic as hell throughout the year. So
the summer months are crazy for me. I still work a full-time 50-hour-a-week job plus doing Adept Defense. So it's a lot of late nights and a lot of weekends for me all summer long, plus trying to balance, time to do stuff with the family. So I've got 2 young daughters and a wife, and, trying to balance everything. It's a struggle, but this year, as far as me being a student in somebody else's class, I'm going back to Tim Heron again this year. Learned a lot in his class last year on the competition side of the house. So been working on quite a bit of stuff from that class. So I want to go back and hopefully prove to Tim that I worked on and got better with the stuff that he saw from last year. And I'm sure he will give me a new set of things to work on this year. But I'm not only taking his 2-day class, they offered an additional class the day before. Did you see that?
Oh yeah, the match clinic skills.
Yeah, so I signed up for that as well, because one of the big things for me with competition shooting was learning to stage plan. So I've gotten better at it this year. I've learned a lot from people that I squad with at matches. But that was one of the things I want to put a little bit more effort into too, is being able to quickly develop, the most efficient stage plan as possible. So hoping I get some of that out of that class. And I've only ever run local matches as far as USPSA. So this year, I think I won 3 local matches overall, and came down for the classifier match down in your neck of the woods there. But I have still yet to do any major matches. So being that we have some big ones in Michigan this year, I'm going to try to make it to a few of those. So I should be able to coordinate my teaching schedule with match schedules better this year. It seemed like this past year, there were a lot of matches I wanted to go to, but I was teaching a class that day. So when I put together my curriculum schedule for this year, I can, plan that out a little bit better with the competition stuff.
Yeah, and definitely having those on what I don't like about major matches is the fact that they decide they're going to open up major matches right near Christmas time or right after Christmas time, when everyone's already like, I'm broke. I spent money on my kids for Christmas. And I'm like, they got to drop. What was it? I was listening to a podcast the other day from the Hit Factor podcast, and it was like they spent $2,000 on January 1st, like every year.
Right.
because of major matches.
Uh-huh.
Jesus. But I mean, yeah, we've got 3. No, we actually have 4 this year in Michigan. I'll
Right.
plug them here. The mitten match, that one's going to be the first major for all you Michiganders. If you're a low cap guy, you can shoot the mitten match at Brooklyn, or the next one after that would be the Michigan sectional, sponsored by Chile Custom Gunworks. If you don't know, they make awesome 2011 parts for your 2011 needs. What the next one after that is then in the middle of July. That's going to be the Ryan Rocks Charity Blast, which I highly recommend. This show will actually air after my interview with the match director, Jeff Garrick. Thank you, by the way, for putting bugs in his ears when he went back up to Mansalona to shoot with his dad.
Yes.
So that was a fun conversation that I had with him. And then the last one in Michigan is the Chile Custom Gunworks Area 5. So that'll be a level 3 match, Area 5, since that contains Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, and Kentucky. Oh, and Wisconsin. Can't forget our cheesehead friends. But yeah, so those matches will be pretty cool. I hope we'll see you at a couple of them.
Yeah, for sure. And when you had Eric from 508 on, he was talking about maybe making the trip for one of those too.
He better. I mean, it'd be nice to see him.
Yeah, we're gonna have to stay on him about that and see if we can make that happen.
Yep, we have to. I mean, that doesn't open up until February, thank Lord. So I mean, we don't have to feel so broke.
Yep.
But that one's at the end of July, guys. The last week of July. That's a day and a half format, which I've never seen a day and a half format. But I know my fellow listeners who are diehard major shooters say, "Oh, they do that all the time." So,
Right.
But I do want to talk before we kind of wrap the show up. I want to talk about how I found you on Instagram, but then I found you had a YouTube channel. I see that YouTube's not the biggest thing for you, but you do fairly well at it. So, what kind of got you making YouTube videos?
So originally I wanted to put out like some after action stuff as far as some of the classes I took, put out some info for people that were looking at taking some of those classes, because if somebody's looking at taking a class with one of these, national level instructors, it's a pretty good price tag. And I've been to a few of them to where it's a really big name instructor and the class really wasn't that great. And I've been to, some phenomenal classes too. So that was originally my goal for the channel, was just to put out some information about training classes. And then I started the channel right before I started my company. So it quickly changed into, being a little more the business side of Adept Defense. Being that I'm sponsored by my local gun shop, Retro Firearms, they will loan me any gun in their store for as long as I need it to do a review. So that's a good opportunity to get some time behind new guns that hit the market, do a video on them. It works out good for their store as well, because if one of their customers are looking at that gun, they'll send them the video link from a video that I did. And Randy, the owner, he said he's, kind of made up someone's mind as far as 2 guns that they're looking at. And I have videos on both of them. So they'll watch my review and kind of just decide what they want, as far as pros and cons that I find with the guns. So it's kind of taken a few different turns as far as, the review side of it, some of the educational side of it. But yeah, it's one of those things to where now YouTube channels being firearm based, it's really tough to grow the channel bigger now. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of roadblocks, I think, with the algorithms and stuff being firearm based. So at the time I got in, I had pretty good growth with the channel right off the bat, those first couple years. And then, since then it's kind of, plateaued off quite a bit. So I think, a firearm channel that's looking to start now, it's pretty tough to gain a lot of subscribers, this day and age.
Well, I will say, yeah, I would kind of agree. You have to be consistent though, too. I'm not saying that you're not consistent. I mean, life gets hectic for you. You still post good content, which is part. You got to post good content. not have terrible audio. And
Yes.
in some of the guys, they got to dump money. You got to dump a bunch of money into a video. Like you got to go buy the new whiz bang right when it comes out, test it, shoot it, and then get the video out kind of quick. So
Yeah.
you can then get on the people researching the gun before they buy it trend. And
Exactly. Yeah. So it's, my channel, being that I'm so busy in the summer months, a lot of times I only put out a couple videos for the entire summer months, and then this is kind of the time of the year to where I start to have some more time. So after the holidays are done until spring, I'll be able to focus more on my content that I put out there, which also translates into more people seeing my videos and wanting to take classes too around the area. So that helps, build up the business side of it going into the next training season. So it helps in that aspect too. But, if I was an actual YouTuber, and not just a company that happens to have a YouTube channel, I would need to have weekly videos, right? Like if I was consistent, had video every week, I'm sure the channel would continue to grow from there.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I definitely agree. But yeah, YouTube, it's fun, it's cool, it's honestly it's a great way to get like out there. But they also got to watch you shoot. Like, unfortunately, you got to be shooting all the time, burning ammo. It's not like sure a dry fire video and and match video they like watching, but it's like they like the ballistic masturbation videos of just dumping rounds. And I guess that besides Aaron Cowan being very articulate, I mean that's kind of why they like his videos. He shoots and it's just you hear the gun go off and and he has some good points about it, which I like watching Aaron Cowan's videos.
Yeah, he gets a lot of good B-roll. I mean, when he's doing 2,000 rounds on a single gun review, he gets a lot of B-roll from multiple practice sessions to put into one video. So, that keeps people coming back because they want to see the person shoot.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's for sure. Or then now you got to be super good at editing now too. Like, have you seen like a lot of I mean, I know you probably watch YouTube, but then now a lot of the gun channels are like, you got to have crazy editing. You can't be slack or lackadaisical on it,
Right.
They'll turn off, and that's the unfortunate part. I mean, we could talk about YouTube bullcrap for hours, but pushing off from there, I like asking this question to some people. And what is something that current Jason would like to tell past Jason about shooting?
I think the biggest thing is stop practicing what you're already good at with live fire, right? Because when you go to a live fire practice session, that should be the time to confirm what you're working on with your dry fire stuff. And I fell victim to going to the range for a live fire training session, wanting to feel good about my performance. So you spend the entire time doing drills on stuff that you're already really good at. So you don't end up taking away a whole lot of benefit from that session like you would, let's work weak hand only for an entire session, right? I would actually benefit from that session a whole lot more than doing a bunch of drills that I'm already really proficient at.
Right. I would definitely agree with that too. Be able to confirm it and that you're consistent with it, but what's it matter if you you can do a sub-second draw from concealment 9 times out of 10, what's the point of continuing to do so at the range? And some of those things, like, in my mind, do you really need to do them at the range when you could do them in dry fire all the time?
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people downstate don't have outdoor memberships. They go to the indoor range and they can only practice shooting in a lane.
Right.
And I've kind of been now an advocate for going and joining a gun club. It's a lot of money, but you'll be able to do a lot more things.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a little bit spoiled up here in the aspect of we have kind of a few public land areas, which are, more or less the spots that people go shooting at that have really good, berms at them. And it's a safe open spot to be able to shoot at. And, 9 out of 10 times when you go, nobody else is there. You can use all the area you want. You can set up as many target stands as you want, and you can be there for a few hours and have a really good session with a lot of movement in it. And the people that, can only go to the indoor range, they can't get any of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would be very disappointed if I could only go to the indoor range. I haven't gone to the indoor range since 2020. No, 2021. I don't know. I had to re-zero an RMR. That was the only reason I went.
Right.
Because it was deer season, and you can't go shoot outside on family property in deer
Yep.
season because everyone gets pissed at you.
Right.
But that was a conversation I didn't like having. It was funny. I went there. The manager didn't even charge me for my range time. Because I was like, I just told I know the manager and we were pretty chummy. I'll sit there and I'll talk to him enough. I'll buy something. It didn't matter if I really needed anything. I'd always buy like a magazine or something.
Yep.
And it's like he's like, yeah, I need like 10 minutes of range time. He's like, what for? I got to zero this red dot again. He's like, okay, go in there.
Yep.
Got it done. Came back out because
nice.
I mean, like a half hour to an hour blocks. It sucks. Like.
Right.
No one ever in an indoor range. No one ever stays that long because they blast through all their ammo in like 10 seconds. At least common average like shooters like that just do it for fun.
Yeah.
They blast through all their ammo and then like, well, what the fuck do I do now? I've been here. I have this like half hour. Do I stand here? No, you get you just get out of there. But yeah. But Jason, we're kind of near the end of the show. This is kind of the part where I let you plug your sponsors, and then where can the people find you?
So my website is adept-defense.com. That has my schedule, course descriptions, and then that's where people sign up as well. Instagram is adept_defense, and Facebook Adept Defense. And then my YouTube channel as well, Adept Defense. So my sponsors, we've talked about 508 holsters. I have a discount code with them, which is Adept Defense, 2 words. That will get you 10% off your entire order. And then Retro Firearms, local gun shop in Petoskey. They're a big supporter of mine as well.
That's pretty cool, man. If people they can reach out to you via your website, or where do you prefer they hit you up at?
Yeah, website's a good spot. Email, which is adeptdefense@yahoo.com. But my email, my phone number, everything's on the website as well.
Awesome. That's a good place for people to find you. So go check out Jason, guys. He's a pretty cool dude. He's a friend of mine. If you want to seek some training, I bet he'll probably give you some tips on the internet if he feels generous to you. So guys, thanks for checking out this episode of Manny Talks Shooting. I greatly appreciate every single one of you. Till next time. Get out and do the things, people.